Okay, the fact that I'm actually sitting in my dorm room in India is kind of crazy because I was supposed to come to India for the second year of my PhD. So after my confirmation, I would have come here to do all of my fieldwork and whatnot if the whole COVID situation hadn't been unfolding. And I was finally able to travel here earlier this year, but then I had a number of health problems and whatnot that kind of stopped me from actually coming here. So the fact that I am here, even though it is technically like a year behind schedule, is so exciting. And I'm super excited to be making this video because the last video in this series that I made for you guys was kind of just introducing where I was at with my PhD and talking about the methodological focus of my research, which is the use of the critical realist framework as opposed to a typical positivist or interpretivist approach to research. And now that I'm here and I've actually been able to get out into the field, it is super exciting. So I'm going to refer to my trusty little PhDiary, as I've called it, to kind of just fill you guys in on my research so far and what my time has been like now that I've been in India for almost 3 weeks. So when I arrived, I am living and staying on campus here at IIT Delhi, which is the one of the institutions that I'm doing my PhD with. And so I arrived, and one of the first things that I did when I got here was I went to the Agricultural Sciences Museum in Delhi because I'm working on many aspects of my project at the moment, but one of them is doing a review of the resilience of India's rural agricultural development system since independence from the British Raj in 1950. And what I wanted to do was kind of just like go and experience as much of the history of agriculture in India as I could. And I thought the best way to do that would be through an agricultural museum. And it was a really great museum. I definitely recommend it for anybody who is interested in agricultural sciences or the history of agriculture in India, which I think as a country, India's development is so like intrinsically linked with agriculture and agrarian development. So it was super interesting. So after my first week of settling in, I got to travel to Tamil Nadu to do my first round of interviews and focus groups. So this morning I woke up at 2:30 and flew from Delhi to Coimbatore in Tamil Nadu, and then I came to the town that I'm currently in, which was about a 2-hour drive from the airport. And I've spent the day touring some garment factories, and tonight I am going to meet with a whole bunch of garment workers and do a bunch of my interviews. So I've got a focus group and some individual interviews lined up, and I'm incredibly tired, but also very excited to finally do like my first official round of data collection. This is probably like the best image that could capture what the experience was like. I was focusing on this idea of women's empowerment. I got to go into different rural communities, and when I say into these communities, I literally mean into them. I was invited into people's homes. I, sat in one woman's house and did like the whole focus group with all of the people who lived in the community kind of like walking past and coming and watching and listening to what we were doing. And it was, a really nice experience. I think as well for me, having gone through the research ethics process that you have to go through, particularly with my Australian university, I think I got like a little bit stuck in my head about what the experience would be about. And I was worrying about things like my cultural competency and what to wear and if people were going to be offended by the types of questions I was asking. And obviously those things are all important and they were kind of like front of mind, but the whole experience was incredible. Everybody was so welcoming, they were so friendly, and they were really willing to share their stories kind of with this knowing that the research will kind of help to empower other women, which I just thought was like super inspiring, and it made the whole experience really nice. One of the things I was not prepared for at all was in one of the villages, I was doing a focus group interview with these women, and a lot of the children had kind of been coming and watching me, and then they'd run away and get one of their friends, and then they'd come back, and they were quite cute. And then they asked if they could sing me a song, and they sang me some songs in English, and then they asked me to sing to them. And I didn't know what to sing, so I sang The Wheels on the Bus, but I don't think they understood what I was singing, and so I was just getting these blank looks from all of these children who were just watching me I was trying to like do actions. I was like, the wheels on the bus. Oh my goodness. It was so embarrassing. Last night I caught an overnight train from Erode to Madurai, which is kind of like the third largest city here in Tamil Nadu. So I finished all of my field work, but I figured since I'd flown all the way down here, I might as well go and do some exploring and check out the state a little bit. So now that I've kind of seen what rural Tamil Nadu is like, with all of my fieldwork activities, I've come here and I'm super excited. You can see that there's a whole bunch of temples, which is kind of what Madurai is famous for. But right now I'm going to go and check out the Gandhi Memorial Museum. So there is 5 Gandhi museums in India, and one of them is here. So I'm really keen to go check that out this morning before I get back to transcribing all of my interviews. I got to experience a little bit of the culture and just do some exploring, and I just used that time to kind of honestly sit in a hotel room and transcribe all of my interviews and data that I'd collected from the previous days, and that was kind of exciting and kind of fun. I've been to India 2 or 3 times now, but I'd never been to Tamil Nadu, so it was exciting to kind of get to explore a new part of India while I was doing my fieldwork. Something that was really interesting that has kind of come up already, and it's something that I'm obviously reading a lot of literature about to kind of see whether it contradicts or supports what I've found, but it's really interesting the lack of clear kind of causality between this idea of women's empowerment and the reduction of poverty, or the increase of financial or like livelihood resources. A lot of development interventions are kind of based on this idea that when women are lifted out of poverty, it empowers them, or conversely, by empowering women, they can lift themselves out of poverty. And I think it was really interesting to kind of see that there is not necessarily a direct kind of causal link between these, and this is something that I'm also really looking forward to kind of exploring in the next few days. I'm currently in the process of actually writing up a field report so that I can provide kind of these preliminary findings from that particular context to the organisation that I partnered with, just to kind of give their project managers and coordinators an idea of what my findings have been. And because of this huge methodological component of my research being about combining this very complex philosophical framework with really tangible systems thinking tools, I'm able to kind of use these systems thinking tools as a way to not only conduct my research and analyze my data, but also as a way to communicate my findings and share my findings, which isn't something that I'd really thought about in the beginning. I was more focused on whether I was able to kind of apply systems thinking with critical realism in a non-peripheral way, but like a really holistic application of these 2 frameworks. And I didn't consider how well critical systems thinking would actually be for communicating my critical realist research findings. And so I'm currently writing my report. I really want to get it done today. I don't know if I actually will, but I am going to push myself to just do a little bit more writing, because I think I can at least get a draft complete so I can send it off for tomorrow. But just as an example, systems thinking, one of the really common tools in systems thinking is the iceberg model. And what I'm going to do, this is just like my own little personal kind of draft and version of it, but I'm going to use this iceberg model to actually model and map my findings of women's empowerment in the particular system that I'm studying. And I think that will hopefully be a really nice way to kind of communicate my findings with the development organizations that I worked with. So that's kind of where I'm at the moment. I've honestly just been catching up a lot on the stuff that I kind of fell behind on while I was sick. I've also been preparing for a conference. I'm leaving tomorrow morning, which is why I really want to get this stuff done so I can kind of spend the next week. It's a 5-day conference, and I really want to spend just the whole week really engrossed in critical realism, because it is the International Association of Critical Realism's conference. I'm presenting at the conference, which is super exciting. I've currently I've only had a poster presentation at an international conference, and then I've only presented at a Queensland-based conference back in Australia. So this will be my first actual presentation where I'm presenting my research to an international audience, and I'm excited. I've been dealing with imposter syndrome all day, but I can probably talk about that another time.